Welcome to the Malachi's Message Foundation and its Toxic Mold Sucks stories, where we want people to know that toxic mold is a real danger and threat to not only your health, but your home, your finances, and your relationships. We want to raise awareness about toxic mold by showing you the real damage it does to the people, families, and children it affects, and the process they go through after being impacted by mold in order to regain their health, their home, and their lives back. So here we go. Jennifer, we are so excited. Thank you so much for taking time to come on today.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Great to see you.
Yeah, Jennifer, I just, again, want to say thank you so much for the site that you had put together so many years ago, because it was your site that during my dark time when I got out of mold, that was my light. So thank you.
You're so welcome.
I'm just gonna cry because I can't believe I'm actually talking to you. But if you could tell us a little bit about what your life was like before you experienced mold.
Yeah, I was honestly a typical mom. I was a single mom. I had gotten a divorce and I had my kids with me, and life was pretty tough for me. After that, I would have to say my parents kind of had to help me out because I was in kind of in a narcissistic abusive situation, and it ended up being to the point where I had, well, now I later find out that I've had some traumatic, experiences as far as trauma is concerned that may have something to do with being more, whatever you call it, exposed when you're exposed to mold. But technically that's kind of where I started on the platform because I was a single mom. I had started a business and I was doing marketing from home for like 8 different companies at one time. So I was obviously type A, single mom with 2 kids, type A. And I literally was just trying to do the best I could for my kids, you know. I had literally moved to the greatest town, which I think in the world is Naperville, Illinois, which is an awesome town. And I started to just, I said, I'm going to raise my kids here. This is like the best place to raise my kids. So I worked all day long. I'm just going to say, from my home office, I worked all day long, just to try to build a business. And it was all focused around marketing. And my kids were in school. So I would basically, it was really tough. I mean, if you're a single mom and you're a working single mom, hands up, because I totally salute you because I was there. Like I totally know how this is. And everything I think was just, I think I was just so strong that I didn't allow anything to take me down. And I think that ultimately got the best of me, is trying to stress so much that I put my body through this just high stress period, where I couldn't really handle things when I did get exposed or when things did go wrong. So that's the kind of platform I was on, was type A and volatile is what I call myself at that point. Then it just happened overnight. I won't get ahead. You go ahead and direct me where you want to go next, but that's exactly kind of where that's the setup. That's the story setup for you.
Well, that's the next question. Can you tell us your mold story? So you're already going there. You're good.
Yeah, I'm good, right? Okay, and so basically, this was a home that I had planned on renting to own, and I was so excited, thinking I could own a house with my kid. Like this was not heard of, like because I was in a group of single moms, and none of them owned their house. I mean, they were all renting, they were all, living off child support and whatever else they could get a hold of. And I was just thinking I could just really do this. So I found this house in Naperville. And the guy was like, yes, we'll run it to you for like a year and then we'll consider, rent to own. So I was so excited, right? So of course the rent was lower because he was kind of looking for that perfect person to kind of buy the house and take over and do the rent to own. So I was like, okay, I'm going to prove myself. We're going to do this, right? So I was working nonstop, like I said, the whole mom thing, and then working all day till about 3 o'clock, and then rushing to the school to pick them up, and then just crashing, like every day. And all of a sudden, like I started feeling like shortness of breath was my first symptom. And then I started feeling like heart palps and stuff like that. And at the time, I called my husband that I married now. He was my boyfriend at the time. I called him and I said, I feel weird. Like something is just weird. And he's like, well, you just need to rest, just rest or whatever. So I was just trying to take it a little bit more easy. And then one day, like I would say soon after that, about a week or so after that, I noticed that when I walked into the bathroom, that the porcelain tiles were kind of like screeching when I would walk on them. And I'm like, what is this? Like they're scraping or something. So I called the landlord and I said, hey, I don't know what's going on, but they're like kind of loose, but maybe we need to see what's going on. So he brings the guy in, handyman. We love handyman, don't we? Handyman. And he took his little tool and he lifted it up. And I saw it was just nothing but black slime. And I knew nothing about mold at this point, nothing. So I just looked at him and he looked at me and I was like, ew, and he's like, yeah, ew, whatever. He puts it back down. He makes a few calls, goes out to his truck, comes back in and says, hey, landlord's going to take care of it. Can we come by tomorrow? I said, well, I guess. I'm like, I work from home, so I'm always here. He's like, okay, fine. So he comes in, just by himself, just a regular old handyman, and he is going to take up this entire floor by himself. So he puts a hefty bag outside of the door in the hallway in front of the bathroom, and he just starts flinging these tiles, and these big heavy porcelain tiles with all the black slime and whatever. And I was just like, whatever, let the guy work, right? So I come down to my office and I just start, doing my work and stuff. And then he tells me about 4 to 6 hours later, he says, now look, don't use the bathroom. I forgot to tell you that, but you guys might have to go, and I said, that's all right. We can use the bathroom at the neighbors. They're fine. So we would go to the neighbors back and forth and they let us use their bathroom for a little bit. But he'd come in every day and he told me not to open the bathroom door, but to just let the fan go in that room. And I said, the fan? He's like, yeah. There, oh Lord. So we had these vents that were on the wall, like a lot of the bathrooms have them on the wall, not on the floor. And I think it's the what do you call it, the returns? A lot of them are the returns in the bathroom. And he was taking that fan and literally blowing the spores into the HVAC system, into the air ducts to, supposedly dry out the bathroom because the floor was all wet and slimy. So I was just like, wow. And I'm like, ew, it's starting to smell like musty in here. He started smelling the must and stuff. And then he said, well, we'll take care of that. And then the very next day, we're talking like bleach everywhere. I mean, this guy comes in with the big, huge thing of bleach, right? And he's just going at it. And I was like, I got to leave. This place is like on fire. He didn't even ask me to leave, so I just leave because it's so bad in there. And I come back and the whole house is like airing it out or whatever. Well, it was like not even a week. And they had put new tile in. He had redone the whole tile bathroom, the floor and everything. And we finally were able to use the bathroom again. And within a week, I was sitting at my desk, just like I am right here now. And all of a sudden, I just went, whoa, whoa. And I just like blacked out, completely blacked out. And I was still conscious, but all I could do was scream for my kids. And I was just like, somebody call 911, 911. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what I was saying. All I know is I was screaming for help. And I just remember like hitting my foot on the floor, on the wooden floor over and over again, because that was like the only way that I knew that I was still alive. if that makes sense to you. I was literally, because I couldn't, everything else had just gone like totally sideways. Like I didn't know what the heck it was. Then all of a sudden, I just heard all these people just barge into the house, big firemen, everything. And one of the guys was just looking me straight in the face. He grabbed my face and he's just like, breathe with me, breathe with me. And I was trying so hard, but my eyes were this open and I could not see anything. Like it was just the weirdest thing. Like I had lost my vision, everything. And I could hear him and I knew he was there and I could feel the breath, that he was breathing on me, just saying, breathe with me, breathe with me. And I couldn't. But then all of a sudden they're like asking me to get up and go to get in the truck with them. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like I just barely am alive. So I just laid there and I just said, do it for me, do it for me. So these big guys just came right in my arms, just drug me. Like my feet, I remember my feet were just dragging like out to the driveway where they had the gurney. And then they put me on it. And I don't remember anything in the ambulance. I apparently blacked out, whatever, passed out, I'm not sure. Woke up in the hospital, feeling pretty much the same way. So I woke up very scared, panicked, screaming kind of. And everyone was coming in there like, you're fine, you're fine. Well, out of all that, they tell me that I have a panic attack. That's all I had. I'm like, really? Well, that's not really a panic attack, if you ask me. Everything went limp. I mean, that stuff doesn't happen. You don't lose your eyesight and all that kind of stuff. So that became the first day of the rest of my life. After that day, I never recovered 100% ever. Like even today, I still have issues. I'm not that same person anymore. Like everything just changed. So they sent me home with a bottle of Xanax, of all things, which is, I'm going to say 99% of us who go through mold issues and we end up going to the hospital because our biochemistry has gone sideways. They are going to offer you some sort of a benzo to just tell you to be quiet or go to sleep or just, relax. So I had never had a drug in my entire life. Like if I did, it was probably when I was little, like my mom maybe gave me some antibiotics. I don't remember. But other than that, I thought I had a great immune system. I had never had infections. I had never had, I would have colds and flus, but I would just, I just work it out and it would take like a couple of days and it'd be over with. Take care of yourself is what I was always taught. So then I get home and the stuff wears off. So we're talking like, I don't know, it was like 10 a.m. the next day. Bam, comes right back again. And here I am like, oh my God, like what the heck is this? So I take another one and I go to sleep and I tell the kids, I guess I'm just not okay. Just, you're going to have to walk to school. So they ended up walking to school. Then I spent the whole day knocked out from Xanax. Every 4 to 6 hours, Xanax basically goes through your system. So here I am again right before dinner. Oh my God. Like, I'm dying. And I literally took another one. And I'm like, what is going on? So I call the doctor and say, this is just, it won't stop. And he's like, you need to be on that for 2 weeks. We're going to have to prescribe you some more because you need that for 2 weeks. Your body just needs time to adjust. So I'm like, oh, I hated how I felt on it because I had never taken a drug like that in my life. 2 weeks in, they say, okay, let's taper off. Let's just stop it and see how it works. Started tapering it off. Bam, comes right back again. So now I'm in the emergency room with extreme heart problems and all that going on. So they're like, we can't take her off of this stuff. So then the next 5 to 6 months would just be the most horrendous time of my life. I was literally taking those pills and then I was researching online what the heck is wrong with me, like just going through all this stuff. So one of my friends had mentioned, hey, what if it's your house? And I was just like, I was one of those people that was like, no, it's never your house. It's not, And so I said, okay, fine, whatever. So she said, make a list of all the stuff that it could be in a person's house. So I was like laughing when I made the list. I'm like, mold, lead, whatever down the list. And I said, okay, fine. I'm going to call my mom because I'm basically living, check to check or whatever with the kids. I don't have money to put into a rental, like to check all this stuff. Let me see what she says. She was obviously scared. She was really scared because she saw how I was. And I said, I talked to my parents and they said, hey, we'll start working down the list. Don't you worry about it. So I was like, thanking God for my parents. So they literally said, you call the inspector and they'll come out and test the house. So I did. I called the mold inspector. Thank God that was the first thing that was on the list. Called them and they came in and they did. I didn't know anything about mold testing. So honestly, I didn't know what was good, what was bad, what they were supposed to do. But apparently I ended up with somebody who knew pretty much what they were doing. I was just lucky. And I'll let people know that because 99% of people, they're not going to be that lucky. That's just going to be someone that comes and runs a test and walks out and sits in the garage and eats a cheeseburger while they're waiting for this air tube to fill up. But which is not what you want. You want an inspector, right? Someone who's going to go find it. So anyway, I had the guy, and then he says he calls me back from his truck, and he says, I found a lot of stuff. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah, I'm really concerned. He said, is there a place that you can stay overnight? And I got scared. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm really worried with you and your two kids there. And I said, okay, I'll wait for the lab test to come back. So called me back the next day and he said, are you sitting down? I said, yeah. He says, well, if I have to come back, just put it this way, if I have to come back with the crew and you want me to do anything about this, we have to wear hazmat suits and respirators. It's that bad. And he said, you didn't stay there last night, did you? I said, no. I said, what am I going to do? He says, uh, go get what you can salvage and don't go back. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, do you want me to send this to your landlord? I said, no, let me contact a lawyer first because I do not want him, I didn't want him to supersede anything and say, oh, it's not a problem, move back in. And then I'm, liable for all this rent and everything else that could possibly go wrong. So I didn't tell him to contact my lawyer or anything, but that happened. My friend next door, the guy that lived next door to me, I'm forever grateful to him. He actually was a real estate agent in town and told me that he had some real estate properties that were just sitting in Naperville. A lot of them were short sales and they were just sitting there and, they have the occasional person come in and look at them. But with short sales, if you're in real estate, that it can be a long stretch of time before that property gets sold to the right person or whatever it is. So he said, yeah, he's got several. So he actually told me, he said, look, I'll let you rent this duplex, nice duplex in Naperville for $700 a month. And I said, I'll take it. I'm like, awesome, whatever. So then at that point, I was actually pulling stuff out of my moldy house out into the backyard. I had my boyfriend come from his house on the other side of town, and he's like helping me do all this stuff, right? We're like cleaning things or whatever. But at that time, I had no idea. I didn't know the difference between porous items and non-porous items. So here I am just cleaning everything with just borax. That's all I knew, like from the internet, right? So here's what we tell people, like, don't go to the internet for advice on mold. That's kind of what I ended up doing, right? Yeah, but it was probably the wrong advice. So I was doing that. And then that guy was gracious enough to call me back for another issue. And he said, oh, you're cleaning. Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you, you can't do that. You have to do this, this, and this. And I thought, oh my gosh. So it took me a couple days to realize that I was literally losing everything, like all of my possessions. And I had to call my mom and tell her, Mom, you're not going to believe this, but they literally told me we have to lose everything. And I can just hear her screaming on the other side of the phone. She just let loose. Oh my God. Like she just went crazy. And it was almost like she made it my fault. Like, no, we've already given you money for testing. We are not going to replace everything that you own. Like, it was like kind of this angry mom type thing. And I felt like I had crossed, you know, I had crossed the line with her. Like, she wasn't going to help any more than this. And I think this is a real important part of the story to tell, because everyone listening to this will actually feel that at one point. Like, you will feel when you have to tell your family or your friends that this has happened and you need their help, and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to be like, no, like, it doesn't matter if you think it's deadly. I don't think it's deadly. So this is not happening, like, and so you get that pushback, and it's really extreme. So, I hate to say it, but if you're not really willing to let go of everything, just don't bring it up. Or if you don't have family that is 100% in, no matter how crazy you appear or sound, it's going to be really tough on you. So you have to have kind of a tough skin to really get rid of all the possessions. So I think the thing that really affected me the most was that I was just not okay. I mean, I was dealing with a 24-hour whatever this was, and the drugs were making it even worse. I could not think of a reason for me to sit up there for 24 hours in 3 weeks and just go through each little thing that I owned, because technically I felt like, yes, this is all of my stuff from my whole life, but I'm not wealthy. Like, I don't have a lot of stuff. So I thought, I got to get rid of it. Like, there was almost no question, like, I'm not going to do this, because then I would say a week or two after I started having symptoms, my kids came home the same very day, both of them, and said, we cannot see in school. Something's wrong with our eyes. And I'm like, both of you? And they're like, yes. And they were crying. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's got to be the mold. Like, there's just no way this is happening. So ended up taking them both to the eye doctor, same appointment, same diagnosis. Very weird. Okay. So apparently their vision, I don't know how they determine the vision is bad or good or whatever, but it was the same exact number. Like, they had the same exact diagnosis. And I thought, wow, this is really weird. Like, it's just really strange that you'd have two people go to an eye doctor and be told that their numbers are the same on the tests. And I'm like, this is crazy. So they got glasses. Then a week later, I would say my son started the worst. He would just wake up just in like asthma attacks. He couldn't breathe. And the worst feeling ever when you're a mother is to hear your child in the next room just, that whole like, wow, what is this? And I would go in there and his eyes were this big, and he would just look at me like, help me. And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, and I would take him to the hospital, and they just, of course, give him the inhaler, and then like, he's fine. And then they're like, I think he's got a diagnosis of asthma. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is from the mold. Then it just got worse. Like, my son started to gain all of this weight, and he was only 11 years old. And I kept thinking to myself, why is he gaining so much weight? This just makes no sense. Is he depressed? Is he eating? Like, is he eating somewhere else, that I don't know of? Like, is he maybe doing the whole depressive eating thing? Is someone at school giving him snacks or something that maybe they're going and eating a ton of food that I don't know about? And he said, no, Mom, no, I'm not. And so I thought, gosh, so I took him to the doctor again. And again, these are just like regular Western medicine doctors, because at that point I had no knowledge of, holistic healthcare or functional medicine or any of that. I didn't even know it existed. So I took him, and the guy's like, oh, your son has extremely high blood pressure. I'm like, blood pressure? Like, he's an 11-year-old active kid in sports. Like, what is this? He's like, I don't know. Let's look. And so they start doing heart tests, and they don't see anything. All they see is this high blood pressure. So it was like, I would say it was like 180 over like 95 or 100. I mean, it was pretty high for a kid. So I was just, really concerned as a mom. So I got that going on. I got businesses. I got my health. I'm dizzy, vertigo all the time, trying to run businesses. And it just got to the point where I literally just broke down. I cried so hard. And I had to literally call each one of my clients and say, I don't know what it is. I'm very sick. They can't diagnose me. I don't know what's going on, but all I know is I need to heal. And I can't do this if I'm trying to work. And I really let go of them with like when I hung up the phone, I would cry my eyes out, literally, because it's everything I had worked for. This business I had set up for it's for my children, like I'm the only one here to support my kids. I wasn't getting any child support, so there wasn't that. It was either that or my parents, and my parents were kind of half in, and the rest was up to me. So I just felt like a complete failure at that point. Then my daughter, her stuff started kicking in. So then we had escaped to this new duplex, okay? And the new duplex, basically what we did was the first night we were there, um, we just cried. I just held my kids and we ordered Chinese food and we sat on the bare floor with no furniture, no possessions either. Nothing. Um, and we just sat there and cried and we ate Chinese. And I remember my mom, it was about 5 o'clock dinner time. And she said, look, I'm going to come over there and we're going to just take you to Walmart and we're going to get basics. And that's all we can do right now. So I'm like, okay, fine. Take one thing at a time, one step at a time. We get into the Walmart. We get 3 air mattresses, a pump, toothbrushes. I think we got an outfit apiece. We got a pair of shorts and a shirt because it was about May. It was about summer. Um, some flip flops, comb, hairbrush, whatever, like you're at a hotel. And I was so exhausted that all I could do was just sleep. And I think I slept for 3 days. And the kids didn't even go to school for 3 days. We just stayed in that house. It was almost like a crypt. Yeah, but anyway, so that was cryptic to me. And then what happened from there was my daughter started getting these rashes all over her arms. And of course, when you go to a dermatologist, they say, oh, it's this disorder or this skin disease or whatever they call it. And then they try to tell me, oh, it's nothing. And I said, well, how does it happen? What's the cause? Oh, we don't know about that, but here's some cream, like here's some cream. And I'm like, oh God, really? Like my daughter, she was healthy, very healthy. My kids were never, ever sick. And she wasn't overweight. She was, none of that. She was a cheerleader in school. And I'm like, this is so crazy. You can't tell me that we have all these problems like within a month. This is crazy. So I knew again, this was a mold thing. So it just like the pattern, when you start getting these patterns with your family, your kids, yourself, you start to realize, especially after all the research I started to do, was no, this is mold. All of it, it's mold. I'm going to go find it. And then I would literally take those things, go on the internet, and I go into these, whatever we call them, medicine websites and whatever research websites and stuff. And wouldn't you know it, I would find symptoms like that. I would find descriptions of medical names for diseases and symptoms that would match up with the things you would find in laboratory experiments on toxigenic mold. And I'm like, that's what this is. That's what this is. So then she had all these rashes. I had to bathe her. We actually ended up using Bend soap. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. It's a BEND, bendsoap.com. I actually, after I had my daughter's skin completely clear up and change, I became an affiliate for them because I'm like, I believed in the product so much. And it had to do with goat's milk, which was incorporated into their soap. So it had to do with nothing else because they didn't have any fillers or there were no synthetic, ingredients in the soap. So I did a lot of research on goat's milk, just period goat's milk. and found out that it has so many healing properties. It was like antifungal, like all this stuff. So I'm like, okay, wow. So we started using that, and her skin completely cleared up. Then I started using it because I'm like, I don't want to get a rash, like, so I started using it on my face and my skin and everything, and it worked well. I still use it to this day. And then her stuff started clearing up, but then I started noticing all of the psychological symptoms coming out from my kids. Like my kids would start to act out, you know. And I thought a lot of this too could be the fact that they lost everything, and that they had, because imagine a child that age, 11 and 13, literally losing all of their stuff. They lose their stuffed animals, their childhood memories, their toys, their things like that. It's so damaging, to a child. And I know you, with Malachi's message, I saw that you guys are actually helping people, which is great. Just to get those basic things back, like taking a child out to the store and saying, hey, you get to pick whatever you want. You get this toy. It's so healing for them. And I know it's hard, but from the outside, people don't understand that. They don't understand how healing that is for a child and for their psychological health, on their mental health and their well-being, because they literally have to go to school. It's kind of like a child who their house burns the night before, and they have to go to school the next day, and they have to keep their chin up, and they don't have a place to go tonight when they go home from school. So it's very similar, to that, because children don't understand. They don't understand the things they can't see. A child is easy. It's easier for a child to understand a fire because they can see, oh, look at the house, it's burnt. They see the evidence of that. And then they can try to rationalize in their head, I need to move on, or, whatever. And they can try to fight it. But when they don't see mold, and they don't see mycotoxin, and they don't see all of these things that mom and dad or whoever says is there, it's so hard on them. And I noticed that, one thing I did notice that I can add about children is that obviously I have a lot of experience taking kids through this kind of thing. Is children they adapt really, really well if you actually explain it to them and then just move on. I've seen a lot of moms come to me and say, I mean, I get it, because you want to dote on your child, and you just want to, oh, you don't ever want them to feel these things or whatever. But it's almost good for them to feel it, but it's not good for them to, what would you call it? To soak in it, like it's not good for them to just mourn and mourn and mourn over the material things and the house or whatever. But what is good is for them to actually feel some loss, but then feel that positive energy from the parent and say, it's okay, honey. You know what? We're gonna build, we're gonna do something way better than we did before. It's gonna be all right. So you just kind of talk to them, and kids are so easy to adapt to that. I honestly have to say that, adults, people were telling me that, like my mom was telling me that as an adult, and I still don't believe it, because I'm an adult. And to me, it's like it was just it caused so much PTSD for me. But in the kids, I think it doesn't cause as much, if you handle it the right way. But if you dote over them and you like almost cry with them about their toys, and you just keep, it just goes on and on and on and on, and they can't escape it. They actually need that adult in their life to help them overcome adversity. And they need that example, because if they don't have it, if they see you melting down with them, they'll never learn how to unmelt. They will always be melting for the rest of their life. And every little thing that happens to them, they're going to continue to grieve and loss, and they have all this PTSD and unresolved trauma that can turn into sickness, and manifest itself into physical health and fitness, or what I mean, not fitness, what I'm saying. So yeah, there was that part of it. Once we got, go back to the house, the duplex, we were there. It's very difficult. The kids also started to feel a lot of learning disabilities. They had A's and B's prior to this whole thing. Move my camera just a little bit. The light picking me there. They had A's and B's prior to the mold exposure. And then after that, we struggled with them the whole entire time. So from the time my son was 11 until he was 18, and then again, my daughter 13 to 18, she struggled extremely bad in school. And I literally, it was hard because I knew why they were struggling so bad, but it was that secret, that us moldy moms have to keep secret because the general public does not identify with that. So you can't tell the teachers in the teachers meeting, okay, everyone, my kids have a reason, that they're not doing things, they are, they've been afflicted by mold and their brains are swollen, you can't really go into that whole thing. And you can't really even take them to get it diagnosed either, unless you're like a millionaire. You could take them to go get a, MRI and a fancy, brain scan or whatever, but who has money or time for that, right? It doesn't really matter anyway. You get those kind of tests, then what are you going to do with it? So you got a test, now you need to do something about it. So anyway, it was hard because I had to kind of absorb all of that as well, absorb what's the word for it? Or, almost like the heat, from the situation of mold itself. Like you have to absorb that for your kids. And then I would have to constantly do that for them. And they were both just struggling so bad. And then just, of course the school kept saying, oh, let's give them a program because you're a single mom. I'm like, no, that's not why they're struggling. Like it's way deeper than that. And I can't talk about it. And then I noticed too, that if I ever started to bring it up, they actually started to treat me as if I was nuts. Like, if I bring this up, should I lose my kids over it because I'm not stable? I don't sound very stable. Like, so then it became this like full on like protect myself about like what I'm saying to the schools. And that was a whole other trauma, trauma in my life. It was just trying to protect them and myself from the onslaught of people who just don't understand, what was going on. So then they kind of made it, we slid through that time. That whole time, I was getting worse. I actually recovered. This is crazy. I almost made a full recovery twice, which was so weird, but then I kept rebounding. What was it, 2012, 2013, the whole year of 2013, we'd actually moved again. So I left that duplex and we moved to another place that was super, super clean. So that place, I had actually had the money, the time to try and really, test everything, make sure everything was completely clean. We had all new things. We didn't do the wrong thing. I had no porous items in the house whatsoever. Like every single thing I owned was metal or glass or whatever it was. So at that point, and I said, I'm going to do this for like 5 years. I don't care how long it takes me to get this stuff out of my system. I'm doing it. So I was just really, 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 really strict. And our diets were just off the chain, just whole food. Like, I mean, we were just eating nothing but fruits and vegetables and, juicing and, pasture raised meats and fats and good proteins and all that kind of stuff. And my son literally went from, geez, I'd have to say 5 foot tall at 11 to 6'4" and extremely thin. Like he went from this little fat pudgy boy. I have before and after photos. I wish I could show them on the screen, but it was amazing because I had literally helped him. He hasn't had an asthma attack since we did all of that. His vision is still permanent, like they still wear the glasses and everything, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't something that we could probably reverse. But he has absolutely no symptoms. The only thing that my daughter is struggling with now is she's struggling with her, I think it's an endocrine issues are going on. she's got like issues with her hormones and stuff like that. And then what else too? Yeah, I mean, her vision as well. I mean, obviously she's got the glasses still, but yeah, so they're doing okay. They're doing well. My daughter's actually working and she's supporting herself and she's got an apartment now. So we're really happy for her with that. And she is going to try to finish up her schooling. She took a break with COVID and everything, but she was wanting to get into functional nutrition so that she can help people with their diets and that sort of thing, and to get healthy again. And so that's her calling. And then my son, he went down to Florida to Kaiser University, and he's got his degree now in graphics. So he does a lot of graphics and stuff for he's it's funny. He only wants to do graphics for the automobile industry. So if anyone else asks them, like, a business owner, oh, hey, I sell cookies. Would you do something for me? No, you're not a car, so I can't do that. So he's kind of funny. But anyway, so he's down there, and he did call me, like I said, 2 or 3 days ago, that he wants to come back home, which is kind of nice. I would love to have him back home, but again, as parents, we know that that's only temporary, right? These kids, they miss their parents, and then they want to come home, and then they're done. They've had enough of me for a week, and then they're gone. But that would be nice. So what I'm doing now, I actually, when I rebounded, I will say I got sick again. We did find that there was mold, and I knew that was why I rebounded. We found mold in the townhome I was living in before I got married again. We found mold under the sink, and it was pretty bad. Like, I did not go under that sink. I had really no reason to go in there. And I actually opened it up, and it was like white fuzz, like all over the pipe. And I figured that's exactly what it was. So we literally, they came in and remediated it. But I just did not feel okay. And I decided to leave. So I ended up leaving, and I ended up going to, well, I got a proposal. So I ended up moving in with my husband. He's my fiance at the time. So I got a proposal. I moved into his home in Michigan. And what would be the luck? What would be the luck? So the window in his basement was one of those, I don't know what you call them, the window where you can like kind of crawl out of. And then there's like, if you stand outside and you look on the side of the house, it kind of it's down underneath. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it's like a well. You can like look down in there. What would be the luck of me is that thing filled up with water, and the pressure that caused the window to cave in, and the whole basement flooded. So here we were. I was thinking I was fine. I was getting through all this, and then the whole basement flooded. Whatever happened, I don't know. He ended up, now we realize, he had a stroke like a few weeks after that, after we tried to clean up and do everything. Now, in my opinion, I truly believe that he had a stroke because of the mold, because of the house, and it flooded, and it was a 1940s home. I'm sure there was lots of spores just waiting, to get that moisture or whatever. And there was mold that started to grow. And I was telling him, we're gonna have to do something about it. I don't know what we're gonna do. And he ended up having a minor stroke where he was in the kitchen one day and just started to like crumble, and then his leg just went out from underneath him, and we didn't know it was a stroke, because for weeks he kept saying, oh, my leg is just bothering me, my leg is bothering me, but he was fine cognitively and everything. So I thought, and he was going to work every day. He was a salesman, going to work, doing traveling sales in a car and everything, driving around. And I didn't know that he was not performing well at his job. And they literally let him go. And he came home and had to tell me that he doesn't understand. He doesn't know. Like, he's been there forever. Like, he doesn't get it. And I'm like, oh, I felt so bad for him because I didn't know. I didn't understand. And we went through that. And then I didn't know this, but he had completely lost his ability to remember that he had bills. So he didn't know that he had a car payment. He didn't know that he had a house payment. He didn't know that he had credit card payments or, you know, lights and all that stuff. So that part of his brain got damaged when he collapsed that day in the kitchen. And I didn't realize either because he was handling all the finances. I wasn't handling anything because we weren't married yet, you know. So I figured, you know, that's his stuff. So then he actually defaulted on the house, the car, like everything. And I didn't know until a woman came and served us the foreclosure on the house. And I looked at it and I was just like, what is this? And he just looked at me like, oh no, I forgot to pay it. And I said, honey, like, how many times, how many years, what? Like, I was just freaking out. And apparently it had been months. Like, he didn't even remember. And I was like, wow. And I just sat there like, okay, this is crazy. I don't know what's going on. At first, I was upset because I thought I didn't know he had a stroke, you know. So I didn't really just go crazy. I just said, okay, look, I'm just going to have to do this. I don't know what's going on with him. So I had to jump in and just try to like get everything the best we could. And we couldn't save the house. So we ended up losing the house, which was crazy. And everything all again. But to him, it was that was his devastating moment. But my devastating moment was losing my house and everything from mold before. So to me, this was just, you know, like I can do this again. Let's just do it again. We're just going to leave everything, blah, blah, blah. Let's just do it again. And I think it was too hard on him. And when we got here to my mom's house, the house I grew up in, is where we're at right now, he had another stroke because he couldn't handle the stress that he had just put his new wife through all this and just the pressure of that and everything. And he ended up having another stroke. And that one hit him pretty bad. So he's not bedridden, but he's doing well for, you know, what happened. But so now we're dealing with that now. But other than that, I would say, you know, it's just what I did now was I realized that all of the diet information that I had come up with, I actually had in 2014, I created what was called the mold detox diet. And I had the mold detox diet on my website. And it was just basically a list at that point of all the things to avoid, why to avoid them, and then, you know, the things that you should and shouldn't eat. So that's just lists of things. But it wasn't until I got, I'm going to call it hundreds of emails from my website of people saying, where's the book? You know, and I'm like, what book? What book? You know, where's the book? And they're like, you know, mold detox diet. And I'm like, I don't have a book. I'm like, well, I can give you a few of my recipes. And I'm like, because I basically just know what I'm supposed to eat and I, you know, and how to do it and the order to do it in. And they're like, you need to make a book. And I was like, oh, yeah, that'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it? Right. So I went to I called a couple of publishing companies and stuff. And to be honest with you, it was so expensive for me to make a book of that size. Like, you know, literally with all that information that I had up in here in my head, plus all the recipes and everything. I mean, you're talking like a 300 to 600 page book, you know, that's just way too expensive. And then thinking about like Moldies can't afford a $99 book. Like, what the heck? You know, it's going to cost me so much money. I'm like, so how can I do this? You know, so I figured, well, you know, website's the way to go. But then I didn't even have near the technology or the money to put into something like that with all the bells and whistles that I needed it to do. So I just said, forget it, you know. So every single time somebody would come back and say, you know, where's the recipe or do you have, I'd say, oh, I just don't have it. You know, just whatever. It was like almost like leave me alone, you know. So, but then eventually, once we got here and settled, I told my husband, I said, I think I should start that. I think I should really just go in and just change the name of it, really make it mine, you know, make it mine, and then just take my experience. And it's not just a list of foods to eat anymore. It's not just a list of foods to avoid anymore. Now it's what I did to actually make this happen. So I called it it's phase mold diet with a Z. The Z is very important to me because it stands for Zen. Okay. So the Z is the whole Zen of the whole thing, is like through all that anxiety and panic disorder and all those nervousness from mold, I had to try to Zen myself all the time. And so this is part of the reason why I kind of branded it phase mold diet. The other reason is because I implemented phases into my diet that I had already created. So that's the thing that actually got me well and got me better, was the phasing of it. It wasn't just cutting things out and then eating certain things. It was doing it in a specific pattern, in a wave, and then tapering myself back off. And that's how I won the battle through the addictions, the addictions to sugar, the addictions to gluten, the addiction, just all of those addictions. And I call them addictions. I mean, we easily call sugar addiction, but we don't call gluten an addiction. And I found out through research, scientific research, that gluten actually stays in the body up to 6 months. And literally, our bodies crave it on a certain level. So when you think you're craving carbs or sugar or energy, it could be the gluten that you're actually craving. So in this diet, obviously, I take you through, there's 8 phases. So it goes month 1 all the way to month 8. And basically in the middle of it, you're at a heightened state where you're like, like you're trying not to eat all those certain foods, but you don't want to do it too long because your body does need natural glucose and natural things that you took out for a little bit, but you need to put it back in there. And once I did that, it was like I was able to I just felt like this thing lift, like a lifting that most moldies want to feel. That's exactly what we want. We constantly go into groups on Facebook or online or wherever, and we ask people, what do you want? What's the biggest thing? I just want that to lift. I want the brain fog to lift. I want the fatigue to go away. I want all this stuff to go away, but and then that was the one thing that really helped me. I do have to say, though, another thing I'd like to add is that it actually does cause, depending on how long you've been exposed, there's so many factors. Okay, so there's how long you've been exposed, what you have been exposed to. So it could be various species and things like that of mold. What are the other aspects of it? Well, anyway, we'll just use those two because those are the most important. But people will say, they always ask me, well, how long is it going to take me to heal? Or how long is it going to take me to go through this? Or I said, I don't know, to be honest, because there's so many factors. Like your gender has a factor. If you're a male, if you're a female, what are your hormones? Were you sick before? How was your immune state before you actually got this exposure? Did you have Lyme disease before you got exposed to mold? A lot of people actually have Lyme in their body, but their immune system takes care of it. They're not fighting with it every day. But it's like mold is that trigger. There's that trigger that hits that immune system because it's another biotoxin, which is a whole other subject that we could go into. But so anyway, where was I at here? I'm like getting off on another tangent here. But anyway, so let me think what I was going to say here. I forgot. I just totally hit a brain freeze.
You were talking about the factors that when people ask you how long is it going to take me to get better, there's different factors that kind of play a role, like what you're exposed to, how long you were exposed, your gender, your immune system, before even going into mold and so forth.
Yeah. So, I mean, with all of that, people need to understand that there is no timeline. Like for instance, like I put a timeline on that phase diet, but that's just because it's a whole year. And when people hear a year, they go, a year? I'm not doing this for a whole year. Because it's funny because like I said that too when I first started. I'm sure you did too. You got all this stuff that happened to you, and you're like, oh, well, let's just keep my chin up, and I can do this for 90 days. I know I can, and then you hit 90 days and you go, whoa, what is with this? Like, I'm supposed to be healed in 90 days. I'm supposed to be well in 90 days because that's what they tell me, like I detox this stuff out. Well, no one ever tells you, but I will tell you firsthand, mycotoxin and mold do not detox from the average body, the average person's healthy body, for up to 6 months to a year. Like, and that's minimum. I've seen people struggling with it for 2, 5, 10 years. Like it's really bad. I mean, it gets into that fatty tissue in the body, the brain, the organs, like all that stuff, and then the fat deposits in your body. It does not want to leave. Even if you're hardcore detoxing, you're going to keep going. Keep going, keep going. Don't stop, because there each person's point of, what would I call it, that lifting that you get is totally different. So keep your head up. Like it could be 2 weeks for you. I've seen men, I'm going to say it's men. Okay. Men detox a lot easier than women do. Now I have done a lot of study on this, and this is crazy. This is a whole other section we talk about. But there's a lot of studies that I ran into that had to do with testosterone being one of the hormones that actually protects an individual against the exposure of, like, well, I'd say T2 toxins. Not everyone's exposed to T2s, but like trichothecenes and like stachybotrys, that sort of stuff. Because I don't know what the mechanism is, but there's some sort of protection there. But when you do see, that's why you'll see women and young children, boys and girls, usually are the victims of toxic mold. And then you'll see the male in the household who's just like, you guys are nuts. I'm not sick. You're not sick, you know. And then there ends up being some sort of an internal war in the house, where the mom is doing the mama bear thing, and she's like, those are my kids, and then the husband's like, oh, get over yourself, Well, there's also this other, aspect of it where if a man has enough testosterone in his body, which means he's at his peak years of testosterone production, he will actually have a lot of protection. And so he's not going to feel all of that. Or you get on the other end where you'll get a male who's kind of already low in testosterone. And then they get this hit. And what happens is it's too low. So it lowers it even more because mycotoxin actually lowers testosterone and it hits the endocrine system. And of course, males and females, we all have testosterone, but that's another issue where women will end up with like PCOS, you know. Of a mold exposure, because they end up with all this testosterone in their system. It actually raises it in women, or lowers it. So we got all these symptoms going on with endocrine issues. But yeah, with men, so then you'll see like older men that when their testosterone starts to drop, you'll see them sick more often than you will, I would say, 20 to 40-year-olds. They won't have it as bad. And I noticed that too. Like when I started, I actually have a group on Facebook. It's called Surviving Toxic Mold, Answers from the website. But in that group, I would have to say there's almost 11,000 members in that group, but I would honestly say there's probably only 100 men, like at the most. There's probably maybe 100 men. The rest are all women. So that was one of the obvious things that I noticed from the beginning, and which caused me to do a little bit more research, on why is this, like why it's happening. So, but there's other factors too, where women are at home more. That's another factor. Men tend to leave the house to go to work, but yeah. So there's, well, anyway, I can save you the rest of that too. Is the website is actually, the main website is survivingtoxicmold.com. And that website has been there since 2014. And obviously, as you're saying that it's one of the first sites that you went to that kind of helped you out. I really honestly think that my skills in marketing and search engine optimization and market and whatever actually helped me to get the website to a certain level on Google and that sort of thing. So that way people were able to, when they did search it, they would actually find it. So that was a real help. I kind of had that advantage to just work on that myself and get the site where people could actually access it. But then from there, I started the group, Surviving Toxic Mold, Answers from the Website. And now I turned it into, I used to be the only one on that Facebook group who would answer questions and it was so overwhelming. I'll be honest with you, because I would literally sit up there all day long while my kids were in school, and I was kind of feeling bad a lot. And I would just sit there and answer questions all day long, and it just became so hard that, I think once it hit probably 6,000 or something like that, I was just like, this is just too much for me. So what I do now is I basically have admin that only answer questions from the website. Like, they won't answer personal questions or help someone get through their personal issue. Like, how much, I don't know, how much borax do I put into the wash load or whatever it is. Like, they won't do those questions, but they'll send everyone, here, go to this page on the website. This is where this answer is and where you can find it. But then they'll also say, if the person, if you need extra help, it is available to you. And what I do now is I've started a private consulting group, and it's so much easier for me, because what I was doing for the last 5 years is I was actually booking hourly consults over the phone. And I would just have people, pay me per hour, whatever. And then we would sit there and we would grind on, like, I would have them tell me everything from the beginning. How did this start? What happened? What tests do you have? What can we do? And I would put it all together, and I would give them some sort of a plan on how to exit away from toxic mold. This is basically what I was doing. But I could only do so many, like, your time is only so many per day. And then of course, I was dealing with symptoms too, where I was getting really tired and exhausted, and the anxiety was kind of building a little bit again. So I'm like, I can't handle this. But then there were so many people that wanted the consulting that I couldn't keep up. So what I did now is I basically lowered the price, and just said, hey, look, I'm not going to charge hourly anymore. I think it's ridiculous. It's crazy. It's nuts when there's so many people that need help. But I also don't want to stretch myself so thin that I can't really be, of help to all these people. So what I did is I created a private group, and in that, it's a private group on Facebook, but you can access it only through my website. So you go to the website under services, and then you access the group, and it's just $25 a month, like an entire month. So it's less than 80 cents a day, for me to actually, you post a question, and I will come in with everything I've got, and I will just tell you what I think you should, I mean, I'm not like perfect person to tell everyone what to do. However, I feel like I'm making an impact, simply because I have a lot of people that tell me, they'll come back and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I paid $25 for a whole month and you helped me through this whole thing, and I said, yeah, it works out for me because, I just have that small group of people in the group. And then when they want to leave and they don't need my help anymore, they go. And it's great. I honestly, I feel like a little bit of like this graduation feeling when people leave the group, because they'll actually come to me and announce it. And they'll say, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I need to leave the group. And I'm like, yes, like you've left. All right. And most people, you're like, you don't cheer when you get rid of a client, right? But for me, I feel like it's awesome, because I'm like, oh, I feel like it's just every day, I feel like, wow, I did something great. This is awesome. So it keeps me motivated, every single day to just keep helping these people. And then, I mean, they'll do everything in that group, from send me like I do tons and tons of testing interpretation. So I've been doing the testing interpretation for like about 5 or 6 years now. So I'm pretty good at that. If someone sends me like a big load of Ermies with air and swabs, I mean, I'm all over it. I can pretty much tell them, with all the stuff you have in a puzzle, I don't tell them what they have. I tell them where. I bet it's over here. I know, like, just go look over here, and then they'll have someone else come in that's professional or something, and they'll say, you were right. It was there. I'm like, oh, good, good, good. Like I'm helping people get through their situation. So, I'm technically not, and in the group too, I'm not giving any medical advice or anything like that. And I tell them up front, I'm not a practitioner, but I know tons of practitioners. They're all my friends. They give me all the scoop on every little thing. So I can always tell you, I can give you the disclaimer at the beginning of our conversation and say, okay, I am not a doctor, but here's what it is, kind of the thing. So you know how that works too, like where you actually do know something medical, but you're not allowed to say it. But so you just give them a disclaimer and everything's good, right? But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm doing now. But as far as, so I mean, obviously I'm maintaining the website, and the group is being taken care of by admin. And I've got the phasemolddiet.com with a Z, PH, I should say, PHAZE, phasemolddiet.com. And then, and then also I started this 2 years ago, before we lost our house. I started a business where I knew a lot of remediators, and this is kind of where I was talking to you guys about maybe a couple of weeks ago or something like that. That I'm looking for not remediators, sorry, mold testing professionals, not remediators, mold testing professionals that actually want to learn about, they want to take it a step further. So like if they've got their certification from IIRC or something like that, they're only going to give them the basics of mold inspection. And then they're going to be like, okay, here's a tube, take some air and run, but they don't have the full picture of, like, for instance, mold illness, SIRS, Lyme, how mold and how mycotoxins affect these people. They don't have all of that information. So what I've done is I actually have an ebook for them, but they join my network, and I kind of have them in my back pocket. They join the network, and then I basically have a website called Home Testing Pros, and it's just, I use my marketing skills, and I attract all the people from Google who are looking for mold testing, but they come to me. But I'm very specific on the website to say, look, we don't do any testing for real estate transactions or anything like that. We strictly work with people who have mold illness. So if you're reacting to something in your home, you're sick, you've got an undiagnosed illness of some kind that you think is related to the home, that's where we step in. Okay. So then I have this team and network of people around the country. Right now, I think we have 13, there's about 13 of them, 13 locations nationwide. I don't have it in every state. It would be so nice, because I do get a lot of calls, from people in states that we're not in yet. But I'm looking, honestly, it's really hard. It's really hard to find a home inspector that is willing to trust me, to say, hey, I may not know it all. Because most of them that I have met, they're all like, I know it all, and then they go into people's homes and they make them sick. They go in there and they don't assess things correctly. They look over obvious mold or moisture issues, and then they just rely on a lab test, which is so unfair, to people in this industry, where they're suffering physically, and they're actually told in these schools, like, I'm not gonna point the finger at any of the mold training schools, but they honestly tell these guys that mold does not make you that sick. They're honestly told that the only thing you can get is asthma or a cough or sneezing or runny eyes. They're not told the truth that mycotoxin is deadly. Like, it can actually kill your DNA, like it destroys your DNA. So they're not told this. And so I created this little training program, and then all the guys or gals, I mean, there's actually 2 girls that do it too. They they pass the test, and they have to pass the test in order to work with home testing pros, which is my business. But when they pass, it's great because then I get to open up a new state, and I get to tell people, hey, we do inspections in whatever, California or whatever. And then I start getting a lot of people, and then I just refer to them. I tell them, hey, we have a client in California, give them a call, and that way the people know that I've kind of run them through this, you know, whole thing of like, they know what they're doing. So they don't have to sit there and say, I wonder if I'm going to pay this guy $300 to check my house, is he going to actually really check it? So they kind of trust me in that factor. So yeah, so those are the ventures I'm doing right now, because I'm just a crazy, wild, type A weirdo, and I can't sit down long enough to do anything. But I do have to say though that the only thing that's going to keep me down, let me not say that, okay? It would have to be pretty bad, in order for me not to work anymore, and not to keep doing this, because I honestly, I just feel it's so weird. I mean, it's like it's like the Matrix, the mold matrix. Like once you go in, you can't get out. Like you feel like you just, I honestly give it to people who can get really sick from mold, go through all this stuff, go through detox, and then just get back on with their life. Like I actually wish I could be like that, but it seems like it's just not the case. It almost seems like we're almost destined to do more, because we see the suffering, that we went through. And it's hard. It's hard to just leave everyone else behind and say, wow, I see all these people suffering. Oh, well, no big deal. And I think that's what's great about you guys, with Malachi's message, is you went through your own story. You went through this whole thing, and it was horrendous. It was awful. But you could have just packed up your things, and you could have just started your life over again, and you could have just done that. But you started a nonprofit, and now you're not just starting it, you're actually working, you're on the board, you're actively doing things that, no one's sitting there paying you a big $100,000 salary to do. And it's great, and I'm not saying that we all should do this volunteer work, because I got to the point too where you volunteer so much that you can't, you're to the point, like, especially with my situation where my husband had a stroke. It's like, wow, I also don't want to just abandon everything I've done. I also don't. So I had to get creative, and turn things into some sort of a business or something, but without also, taking advantage of people, which is huge in this industry. That's a whole other YouTube we could do about, getting taken advantage of in the mold industry. But that's just something that I just keep reminding myself I cannot do. I can't sit up here and tell someone that, I'm writing a book, but it's, $500. I just can't, and I cannot sleep at night saying I have all this knowledge, but it's, $1,000 an hour. Like I can't, and I see a lot of this going on, and it breaks my heart. But I also can't, I can't focus on that. I have to focus on the people that I can help, but I also have to focus on to maintaining my household and trying not to give too much. Otherwise, like you were saying, it ends up feeling like you can only handle so much anxiety. But that's the key to it too, is to also balance yourself and just make sure that you're doing all that you can do. Now, I will have to say, there's one more thing that I am working on, and I feel like an octopus. I feel like I have 20 hands and 50 hats going on. I'm constantly working on other things, but I actually do have half of my 20 steps to homeostasis program actually finished. And I need to slap myself, because it's hard. Like I just keep trying to get through it. But it will be a downloadable program on teachable.com. So people will be able to go there I don't have an address right now because it's not complete or it's not uploaded yet. But it's all me video like this, going through 20 steps, 20 things that I did every single day that helped me get my life back, like literally. And I go through each 20 of those things. And it's not some proprietary thing like, oh, I specifically did this. It's like 20, what would you call it? Concepts. It's 20 concepts that I did every single day. So anyone who's doing any sort of protocol for mold can take that 20 and they can match it up to their doctor, their way of treating themselves, their way of handling it. And if they just use the 20, they can get through. They can get through the other side. So I didn't want to create something that said, this is Jennifer's protocol or something weird. You know, I didn't want that. I just wanted to give someone that extra push and tools of what I use to actually just take everything that I was given and everything I was told to do and put it in some sort of like what would you call it? A strategic plan on a daily basis. Because I think that's what people are missing. You know, I'm all about solutions, and I feel like there's a lot of solutions out there, but not a lot of it actually puts it all together and says this is what you need to do every day. You know, because we get the whole thing like, oh, you know, a sauna is great for you, right? We hear that all the time. Sauna, get sweating, but you know, when do you do it? How often? What do you do? Like, you know, I don't know, you know, or like with, you know, the diet, you know, I don't know. I just try to eat good or I try to do this. Well, that with me, I incorporate those 20 things and then I'm just going to go through the whole thing, but it's actually each week is one of the 20. So it's 20 weeks. Like it's a long process, but I figured it's hard when you have mold brain. Believe me, I've had mold. I still have a little bit of mold brain. Like I did, 5 minutes ago, I kind of lost my whole train of thought. That's normal. Like I want people to know that. Like I can sit there and just be like, I don't know what I'm saying. Like, you know, like that's how I feel like I've lost myself. Like my whole train of thought is gone. But I want people to realize that that's normal. And that 20 weeks, yeah, it seems like a long thing, but I could teach it in a whole day. But I think after the first 5 minutes, any moldy is going to go, oh, I'm out of here. Sorry. You know, it's too much mentally. So I break it down. And that whole week we focus on, for instance, like one of them is knowing the symptoms of mold. It's not just 10, it's like 300. Like you need to know these things. So in a whole week, we talk about all the symptoms, like what could possibly happen and how, like, I have research for all of this. It's not just me saying it or what I think, or it's actually like backed up by science. So for the whole week, we talk about symptoms. And that helps, I think. It will help, I think. I'm hoping it will help people to soak it in. And, you know, for that whole week, they'll feel like they've graduated from, I don't know, Surviving Toxic Mold University or something. I don't know. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Like I don't really, besides all that, you know, I'm taking care of my husband and we're empty nesting and about it. You know, I'm trying to take care of myself every day and just keep moving forward. So that was long-winded, but hey.
Everything you just said was such great information, and I'm so excited about this 20-step process that you're putting together, because when I got out of mold, I finally got a hold of somebody who knew about mold. He was a doctor or whatever. He basically told me stay away from sugar, you know, simple carbs, foods made of mold. I was like, well, what's that? Coffee, you know, all this. I hung up the phone and I basically turned around and looked at my husband. I was like, so basically we can drink water and that's it for the rest of our life.
Yeah, I ran into a meme the other day. It was a lady who had like an entire, you know, the what do you call it, charcuterie boards. She had a charcuterie board with like different types of ice on it, and she was eating she was eating all the different kinds of ice, but they were different shaped, so they were exciting to look at. And I thought to myself, this would be really funny to post on the Phase Mold Diet, Facebook page, because that's how people feel, just like you said, they feel like, oh my God, I can't eat anything. I can't do any of this.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I focused on the website, was the psychology of that. Is let's not focus on the what you can't have, because what I do is I actually have that list of you can'ts. It's all the way at the bottom. Like, you don't see it until you actually read through the whole, and then you go, oh, it's not that bad. So that's kind of what I had to do mentally, was, okay, we're not going to focus here on I can't have French fries anymore. It's going to be, ooh, wow, I can have, whatever vegetable it is.
Broccoli.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not a real I'm not against, I'm not for the coffee thing, only because I know kind of what's really going on behind it. But there's people that can bounce out of this that actually go back to coffee. It's not, it's not too much of a big deal once it's out of your system. But I do have to say, like, I honestly, I haven't gone full bore like back into the whole coffee thing, and only because it does reduce your stomach acid, and then it causes, it's acidic. So if I'm not feeling that great and I'm not giving myself kind of an alkaline balance, I always feel like really off, even if I try to. And I forgot to add, not that anybody cares or anything, but I just wanted to let people know that mold, keeping it there too long, can actually cause organ damage. I actually, in September, I had to have my adrenal gland removed. It was my left adrenal gland, and that was no fun. And only because it started to plummet my potassium, it started to produce way too much aldosterone. And when you have too much aldosterone in your system, it can actually cause a heart attack and a stroke. So my life was literally in danger. And it was the hardest decision I had to make, because I just do not like, I do not like drugs. I do not like surgery. Like, I just get away from me, and it was the hardest thing I had to do. But I knew I had to be there for my husband, and I knew I had to continue. Like, couldn't I couldn't do this, and the only alternative was to put me on some crazy drug for the rest of my life, that would block it from my heart, which I'm like, "Ugh, no," because I literally tried it for 3 days, and I wanted to die. It's like, no, 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 I'm not doing this. So I literally went through that. And I want to tell people that yes, it is totally related to mold, because mold, actually, one of the ways that mold gets in is through the endocrine system. It doesn't always affect everyone's endocrine system, but it is one method, one avenue. And mine was greatly affected by it. So I've been having hormonal issues forever. Like, when I was in mold, my whole face was nothing but zits. Like, I just had pimples all over my face, and like, it was just bad. Yeah. It can get
Everywhere.
so bad. Yep.
Everywhere. Yeah.
And
Even my
I
back,
had
my neck.
I had lots of female issues, and just the estrogen, the progesterone, like all that stuff was just off the charts, like not normal. So, but yeah, I just wanted to let people know that too, that can happen to you. And that's one reason, back to the whole bringing the coffee back in. That's one reason why I can't actually have coffee. It's because I only have one adrenal gland. So, when I drink coffee, I just get, I'm like a hot mess. So I can't really have it. But yeah, so yeah. Well, that's basically it. And I'm, obviously, like I said before, I'm not done. I just don't see myself ever stopping and not helping people, in this whole thing, because I feel like I know too much. It's like, when you know a little bit too much, you got to keep going. That's almost like a doctor that has a practice for like 20 years, and then he just decides he's just going to retire. and he sees all these people around him that are sick. What does he do? Just bury his head in the sand? Most of them don't. They continue to tell people how to, what to do, even if they're not in practice. So, but yeah. So, and I think that's what we're all gonna do. I personally think that, because that's what I see. I see that in you. I see that in you. I mean, you're strong, very, very, very strong after what happened, and going through this and pulling through and helping other people is great.
Well, thank you. That leads us to one of the important questions, because of course, Elizabeth and I, our ultimate goal is to have this foundation in every single state, because so many people need it. And obviously it wasn't around for me, it wasn't around for Elizabeth, and it wasn't around for you. But if it had been around for you back then when you were going through mold, how would have Malachi's message helped you?
Wow. That's crazy, because you're right. There's literally nothing there. There's nothing out there. People really only have themselves or their families, up to this point, I would say. And most people don't even have family. I mean, it's really hard, because I actually do see a lot of people that get rejected from their families based on what they think they have. So there's always that too. It's needed. I mean, I can't imagine. I'm thinking of that night, to be honest. I'm thinking of that specific night when we left the house and we were sitting in the living room. And if I didn't have my mom, if Malachi's message was actually available, I probably would have woke up the next day and made a call, because it was as simple as going to Walmart and getting a $15 air mattress, and some like $10 t-shirts and stuff like that for the kids, and some toothpaste. And not everyone has that. I mean, a lot of people actually will have money at the time that they're going through this, but then they also lose it in the process. So they'll lose it trying to save themselves, like we go through this cycle of like, well, the domino effect of, it's kind of like what happened with COVID. People saw this thing come out of nowhere, like a hurricane. It was a virus or whatever, COVID, and they were just like, oh, we can't go anywhere, we can't do anything. They're telling us we can't do this, and it's like this block. I can't go to work. Like, they're not letting me go to work. I can't work. I can't bring income. It's kind of similar with mold. You're sick, or your family member's sick, or your child is sick, and you can't just keep doing what you were doing to keep the money going or keep the job or whatever it is, and you're stuck. So I'm not sure everything that you guys are doing. Like, I'm sure, I mean, when you have a nonprofit, it's like sky's the limit, right? I mean, you can start helping in all sorts of different ways. I mean, it could just be helping a person get to the right professional. It could be helping a person to talk to the right person, like myself, or there's hundreds of other, people that are out there that are helping and doing consulting and stuff like that. It's like having the network, having that support, leading them to support groups on Facebook, where maybe that's all they need. Maybe they're the type of person that just, if they just joined a group or got on a call or did Zoom meetings or whatever, that they could actually get through this. Some people need more help. Maybe someone needs $1,000 to get testing on their home. Maybe they need all of that. And it's just, I think it's limitless, to be honest. But I think if that were me, like I said, I'm going back to that day when I felt like I could picture myself needing that. If my mom hadn't been there, I would have needed Malachi's message. Like, I would have needed to call someone to say, look, I'm a single mom. Or you don't even have to be a single mom, because you can be a mom and a dad and still be so devastated by this. You don't have to be single, because I used to hear that through all these years, oh, you poor girl, you're a single mom. No, no, no. Everyone suffers. Everyone goes through these problems. Everyone needs the care and the help and the love. It's not just single moms. Like sometimes I kind of would feel like, why are they giving me so much attention? Like, isn't there other people that need help too? Like it, I guess sometimes I would always go through that, but I think it's just the stigma of like single moms need help. But you'd be surprised how many dads of his wife is sick, the kids are sick, the mold is in the house. He feels responsible for that. Like he feels like he didn't provide a safe home for them. They got sick. How could he have let that happen? And the stress on the fathers. And maybe they could use an extra $200 or $300 to offset something that they can do to help get their family to the next level or to the next place or whatever it might be. So yeah, I can definitely see this being something that people need and that they can actually access. But again, if you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, I just want to, where can I take? Where can I get? If you're also in the situation and you have a roof over your head and you have gotten through mold, or you're what would I call it? You're more privileged, donate. Even if you're through it or you're not through it, donate, because remember, if you don't donate to a nonprofit and there's no funds available, you can't help. You can work all night long. You and your assistant can work all night long doing all this stuff, and it's great. But if people don't donate and they don't give, then that money is not there to help these people that need. And I'll be honest with you, there are I'm going to say hundreds of thousands of people who are dealing with this who don't know where to turn. They just don't know. And I have yet to see a nonprofit for mold, to be honest. I mean, I see a lot of nonprofits, with other causes and things like Lyme and just different, illnesses, but I don't really see this. And it's weird because it's the most needed, which is so ironic, right? We're the group of people who lose just about everything, including our minds. Like we lose pretty much everything. So I'm really excited to see where it's going. And I honestly, I'm glad we connected because I want to reach out and I want to do my part, if there's something that we can do to help, because we get a lot of people that visit the website every month. And I know for a fact that if they just came to my website and they saw Malachi's message, they would know that it exists. They would know that it's there. So I think it's powerful that and I really want you to partner with other people too who have high traffic and who do a lot of things with mold, because it's just going to help the whole situation a little bit better. And it does ease the tension in the community as far as mold community, because it's very stressful. I mean, sometimes these groups in Facebook can get so heated and so emotional and anxious that it's just so much easier when there's a website ready to go. There's a plan. There's a program to jump into. There is a nonprofit for resources. Everything is there, for that person. So they're not overwhelmed and they don't end up with a secondary problem of more illness and more mental instability like we had to deal with. Like, I'd say most of us are also dealing with extreme mental health issues. And I don't mean crazy. I mean like brain chemistry off. Like it's so bad. We have PTSD from trying to cope with a major catastrophe in our life, and it's so difficult. And I believe that the more resources that are out there, the less, I think we're making a huge impact, to be honest. I think anyone that's listening to this, if you're a remediator, you're a mold tester, you're a coach, you have a website, you're a doctor, holistic, you're a nonprofit, whatever you are, I think collectively, we're all helping other people to be less injured. Does that make sense? Like they're not going to have as much trauma if we all do our thing and we do it well. So hats off to you. And so far you're doing really well, to be honest. I mean, I'm seeing you online and I'm just like, I'm like a proud mom or something, right? Oh, yay. Like that's so awesome. Like they're doing such a great job. Cause I like getting the alerts, when you say we just helped a family, we just helped these kids get toys, or I think it was the last one I saw. But it's really nice. And I like to see when you say, oh my gosh, we just had a big donation. It was like, oh, that's so nice. That would feel so gratifying, to know that you can just now start working, on somebody's project and start helping them. But yeah, so yeah, we're done. I literally I feel like that's all I can do. And I think it's a lot that I'm doing. But I will continue. And I'm sure once I get done with these projects, it's like they're permanent projects. So they'll be online permanently. And then of course I'll feel like I have nothing to do, right? Like a mom who's empty nesting. I feel like I'll be empty nesting moldy or something. Like I need more work. Like I need something else to do to keep me busy. But yep. So, and I'm looking forward to partnering with you. Just let me know what else we can do to help and get the message out.